I am once again insisting that you go and watch Gintama. There is nothing that you can do that is more valuable with your free time than to go and watch Gintama. And some of you may even dare to retort, "Oh, I'm saving starving children." It doesn't matter. Leave the children to fend for themselves. They'll be fine. It's the law of nature. Go and watch Gintama. It is much more important. This is special for me because I actually get the privilege of reviewing Gintama in this channel, and that is just amazing. I never thought that would happen, but here we are with a fresh new season of Gintama airing. And yes, it is a spin-off, I'll get to that in a bit, but this is just huge for me. The idea of reviewing one of, if not my favorite anime of all time, made me so giddy and so excited until I started actually making notes for this video and I realized, wait, this is a gag anime and I don't really want to spoil the jokes. You don't review a comedian's set by spoiling the punchline. That's just lame and ruins it for everybody. So how am I going to review this? Because unlike the actual Gintama, this is a more gag comedy spin-off. It doesn't really have any story, so I'll do my best to hopefully transmit to you how good this is while still leaving a lot in the tank for you to be surprised yourself when you watch it. Having said that, let's get right into Ginpachi-sensei Zany class, or Zany Z-gumi Ginpachi-sensei. See, my pronunciation is almost flawless, and by almost flawless I mean terrible. Let's get right into the review. The first thing I have to note is that Gintama is very funny, and for those of you who know me, you know that I tend to sort of not be super excited for comedy anime because I think that a lot of gag comedy anime tend to just rehash the same joke over and over and tend to quickly fall off, and I just end up dropping them halfway through. And I think Gintama does an excellent job at having these recurring jokes, these recurring characters with the same gimmick they have, but then building up on it, doing slight variations of it, and just doing the most craziest variations and intertwining jokes, and it's just so good. It keeps it varied and fun despite running for so long, and that is super impressive to me. I don't think any comedy anime really nails the comedy aspect like Gintama does. It will always hold a special place in my heart. And of course, one of the things that makes Gintama so unique and so funny as well is that it has the courage to make fun of everything, and I truly mean everything, including its production studio, its committee, and even its author and the staff involved. And these images you see right here before you, you may think, haha, what a funny Photoshop you made there, Dio. No. This wasn't made by me, in case you haven't watched it. These are literal frames from the first episode. And yes, it is as funny as you may guess. I absolutely loved how they presented the sheer randomness and bubbling incompetence as to how this anime was produced and made, and they made it pretty funny. Everything is a joke, and Gintama is not afraid to poke fun at itself, and it's part of what makes it so funny. In fact, the little bit of meta humor at the beginning is almost a good precursor, a good transition, a baton pass between the classic Gintama and this new zany world of the Ginpachi-sensei class. The premise for this show is very simple. They take the characters of Gintama and put them in a high school setting, and that is literally just it. This is obviously not canon, whatever canon means in the context of Gintama, and I think it is a very funny premise that they can explore in a lot of ways. And this will sound a bit psychotic, but even if you've never watched Gintama, I think that you can hop on this show and have a lot of fun. And obviously I know that the sheer number of episodes that Gintama has can intimidate a lot of people. It's a lot of episodes, especially if you're a more casual viewer who's used to watching 12, 24 episode anime. And I think this may be a good stepping stone because yes, this obviously takes the characters from Gintama and it reuses a lot of the inside jokes and a lot of their gimmicks, and prior knowledge of Gintama is obviously appreciated and it will be much better for you to get all of the jokes, but I do think that at the same time, the humor in Gintama is often very situational, very the typical where you have the straight man and then the goofy character doing the goofy stuff and you have the straight character reacting to the goofy stuff in a very over-the-top way. And And I think that is very much universal humor that doesn't need a lot of lore context to really understand. I think that much like you would watch a casual episode randomly of Family Guy on television or The Simpsons or whatever comedy series you prefer, I think that this can be watched very casually as well. You don't need to be super into the lore and all of the characters to really just pop an episode, watch it, ha ha ha, have fun, and move on with your day. And I think this can even be argued about the original Gintama. I still remember there was an episode that parodied Dragon Ball Z, which one? Yes, I know. But there was one specific episode which I sent to a friend at the time. We were in high school, this is super long ago, but I sent him the episode and he had literally never watched Gintama. He just vaguely knew who the characters were. And he watched episode, let's say, 212 randomly, and he greatly enjoyed it. And I think the beauty of Gintama is in how casually fun it can be. Regarding the humor, I think this series is incredibly funny, and much like the original, like I mentioned, this does the straight man archetype of comedy almost to perfection. I don't think I've ever seen a series be as funny with this archetype as Gintama is. And one thing I really appreciate is that Gintama has always poked fun at all of the other big shonen series, and here, even though it is adapting an older work, I think the light novel is from the early 2000s if I'm not mistaken, this still adds modern references into the script, which are greatly appreciated. Namely, at one point this even makes fun of Demon Slayer, which I loved, so the humor, although it is adapting an older work, is updated to fit the current standards and will give modern audiences a chuckle. And another underrated aspect is that the jokes keep building themselves even in universe. You have some of the jokes which are obviously from the original, the characters' gimmicks and whatnot, their personalities, but then you have sort of inside jokes that keep building throughout the episodes that only really make sense in this high school setting, which I think is super funny. Now, if you ask me to compare Gintama with Ginpachi-sensei, I would say I'm not doing that, because why would I choose my favorite child? That is not a question you ask of someone. That is rude, that is uncouth. However, since I must do it for sake of the video, I will say comparing both of them, I think that Ginpachi-sensei sometimes gets a little bit constrained by the high school setting, and it can't get as crazy and as over the top as the original Gintama. I will say it is generally slightly less funny, but still very, very funny. And also, I have to realize that Gintama was a very huge series. It had a lot of episodes and also a lot of filler episodes. And so maybe if I went back and rewatched it, maybe not all of the episodes were absolute bangers, 10 out of 10. So I think this anime is still relatively very, very funny, very, very close to the original. And although it perhaps doesn't have the charm of the original of going through the streets of Edo with all of the aliens, the high school setting is perhaps not as appealing to everyone, I do still think it is incredibly funny. And every fan of Gintama, and even if you're just a casual fan looking for a funny gag anime, you should go and check it out. In terms of its characters, I will say that having a full class of characters is a lot harder to manage than having a main trio with the occasional guests. And I think that by having a full cast that you sort of need to focus at all times, some of the characters, especially in the early episodes I noticed, they sort of devolve into one-joke ponies, they sort of devolve into their own gimmicks, they become almost caricatures of what they were in the original, they don't have as much character depth, which once again in a huge class of characters is fine, but I do think throughout the episodes this problem has been greatly addressed. And for example, there is one of the episodes where the main trio of Gintoki, Shinpachi and Kagura went to the school at night, and I won't spoil anything else, but having the main trio just reacting to the shenanigans of the other characters is so funny, and it really made me feel the old school Gintama vibes that I loved so much. So although the early episodes can be perhaps a bit rough, where you start wondering, whoa, each character only has 5 seconds of screen time, they only give out the funny line they do, is this all it's going to be? No, it can be much more, and the later episodes do get a lot better. Although I do have to say, in terms of one-note jokes, there is one character whose entire gimmick is that she does not speak, she just plays the flute, and it gets me every single time. In every conversation they'll be having, all characters are just going back and forth with some insane stuff, and all of a sudden, and it just gets me, it cracks me up every single time. So I don't know how many more ways I can glaze this anime. I can say it is very good, I can say it is excellent, I can recommend you to abandon needing children and go watch it. But without a doubt, this anime is super good, super funny. It is likely my comedy of the year, which, to be fair, doesn't mean a lot because I don't really watch a lot of comedy anime, but still, it sounds impressive, damn it. And so, it is my comedy of the year. It is definitely my comedy of the season. I love it. It is so good. Go watch it right now, after you like and subscribe, and perhaps even leave a comment for the engagement. So I will see you guys in the next video, and until then, watch Gintama. Ciao!